Hi YouTube, you already know who it is. It's your boy, Court Ware, reporting to you live from Irving, Texas in my backyard. This is a review of Neil Young and Crazy Horse's 1979 album, Rust Never Sleeps. If you clicked on this video because you like Neil Young, there's a chance you may have seen this meme of two astronauts realizing that all of these slacker rock, folk adjacent groups are all Neil Young. And they always have been. And if you listen to the music, the influence is pretty clear. With this review of Rust Never Sleeps, I'll go into the sound that inspired the music as seen in these memes, as well as a few groups that I think should also be orbiting Neil Young's face. Rust Never Sleeps was the album that got me into Neil Young, so if you haven't listened to a full album from him, that's the one I recommend. You can't really go wrong, though, with his popular stuff. On the Beach is great, After the Gold Rush is a classic, and Tonight's the Night is a great entry as well. Neil Young's catalog is enormous, and he's still making music. But Rust Never Sleeps is the one that inspired me to make a video. And that's because its influence is understated, and it's my personal favorite Neil Young album. Before I get into the tracks, I want to talk about the title a bit. Rust Never Sleeps. The name comes from Devo lead singer Mark Mothersbaugh, who remembered the phrase Rust Never Sleeps from his graphic design career, promoting a rust-proofing product. Rust is a symbol that runs through many of the songs on that album, representing the effects of staying in one place for too long, or the consequences of time passing without getting anything fulfilling done, which should hint towards some sort of a musical change for Neil on this project, which I think he fulfills, but I will get to that. This album's A-side and B-side are two distinct sounds. The A-side only ever features, for the most part, guitar and harmonica, aside from one track. You can expect some shadowy folk songs with contemplative lyrics that paint clear pictures. This is nothing new for Neil, as he's kind of done this on every album leading up to this one. But the newness and the new sound really come in on the second half of the record, which I'll get to in my track review, which starts now. Rust Never Sleeps opens with the most popular song on the album, My, Hey, Hey, or in parentheses, Out of the Blue. This track to me is preparation for the ideas that he wants to challenge throughout the album, such as artistic complacency and losing the moment of stardom we see so many artists burn through since popular music began, and how the only way to make that moment eternal is to burn out, or in other words, die tragically in an attempt to make that moment as big as possible. Like the mentioned King in the line, "The king is gone, but he's not forgotten," which you may have guessed is alluding towards Elvis Presley's death. The ghostly acoustic passages that repeat throughout the track give this song a lot of power and make the track feel like an urgent but gloomy message that Neil drove a long way in the rain to tell us. The message reached infamy in the tragic passing of Kurt Cobain, with "It's better to burn out than it is to rust," ending Kurt's death note, bringing an entirely different meaning to the song 15 years after its release. Track 2, Thrasher, is my personal favorite Neil Young song and is one of his most personal. The track describes how he felt leaving folk rock supergroup Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, and how that was a freeing but complex moment for him. Despite being one of the biggest acts of the time, he still felt like they weren't reaching for anything creative, and he wanted to keep driving forward, where the pavement turned to sand. That line, "The aimless blade of science slashing the pearly gates, burned my credit card for fuel, and the motel of lost companions waits with heated pool and bar," are just lines of genius. And this song serves as a reminder to avoid complacency in my own life and paints a gorgeous picture of the classic combination of desert and cosmos that no artist in any medium can paint better than Neil. It's no wonder that he wrote the song while in the passenger seat of a car driving through New Mexico, which I only ever found out while writing this video. But I had that exact picture in my mind, and that's one of my favorite states too. I really want to go back. Partly because of this song, and partly because of the song Albuquerque off of Tonight's the Night. This song has some disses towards Crosby, Stills, and Nash, calling them just dead weight to me. and saying that he got bored and left him there. I like that he doesn't hold any of his thoughts back on this song. I can imagine that in a lot of ways, Crosby, Stills, and Nash were deadweight to him, and his solo discography is a clear example of that. It's certainly a mean line, but it was true, and I'm glad he didn't spare any of his former group's feelings for it, because we got an excellent track out of it with a hard message that may be valuable to some listeners, and still are to this day, with David Crosby saying he's probably the most self-centered, self-obsessed, and selfish person that I know. I can't speak to his character. I've never met Neil Young, but I hope it isn't true, because the themes on many of the songs on this album take the perspectives of characters from completely different lives of Neil's, but are based on people that he's known and others. And a lot of the songs demonstrate a care for the fellow man and wishing things were better for humankind, like on the following song. Ride My Llama continues this extraterrestrial setting with the story of Neil meeting an alien from Mars. Ride My Llama continues this extraterrestrial setting with the story of Neil Young meeting an alien from Mars. And the alien, rather than abducting him or running tests on him, shows Neil a few old songs of his and then smokes alien weed with him. After that, it inspires Neil to ride a llama from Peru to Texarkana. A convenient rhyme. To me, this track is a reminder that no matter where we're from, you can find a way to relate to most people in one way or another. And we should all treat each other with respect from that. After all, we're just primitives who can talk. And I see his llama as a symbol of an object that he brought from other cultures to his old neighborhood. And since it's Texarkana, it's likely a neighborhood where people are rejecting the ways of others and other cultures. The man from Mars likes old folk songs and old alien weed and is just like everyone else. And he wants the people of his old neighborhood to know that the rest of the people on Earth are just like everyone else as well, along with the man from Mars. Pocahontas takes the perspective of a Native American paddling down the river, escaping from white crusaders, who wishes that he could sleep with Pocahontas in order to understand what she thought of the world, presumably after her expedition with Lewis and Clark and after the Americans took over the lands, devastating so many tribes. He also wishes that he could include Marlon Brando in the conversation, who was a famous actor around the time of this album's release and was very vocal about his support for Native American rights. This song brings light to the destruction that modern America was built on. But he wants to show that America has become the opposite of the fields of green and the homeland that we've never seen. With that last line, he removes himself from the character and is now speaking directly to the listening audience, and says that we've never known the homeland or what it's like to be a Native American. All we know is from what we've been told by modern observers, or stories from Hollywood, which would not be written by Native Americans. On top of that, America has become a place where their own common people are subjected to living in a tiny box at the top of the stairs, which is basically a tiny apartment when the land used to enjoy simpler times. Ending off the album's A-side is Sail Away, which thematically follows Pocahontas, with calls for simpler times and finding the peace of the frontier in pre-colonization America, enjoyed through the modest actions in life like sailing away or going to dive bars rather than the best bars. It's a simple song, but I enjoy the imagery of the moonrise in the canyons and the road being like a ribbon on the high plain. The song is backed by this bright, folky acoustic guitar, light, warm harmonica that plays in between lyrics, and quiet drumming from Carl Himmel, as well as backing vocal contributions from Nicolette Larson, and it's her only appearance on the record. But she does contribute to the feeling of freedom and peace that this song gives. I don't have much else to say about the track. It's a simple song to finish off the A-side and bringing in more instruments to lead into the grander B-side. Rust Never Sleep's B-side is really where the innovation is credited, with claims that it's the first grunge album, or being the reason some listeners label it proto-grunge, with members of Nirvana and Pearl Jam being a part of those listeners. The amount of distortion used on Frank Zampedro's electric guitar, the slamming on Ralph Molina's drums, inspired the sounds that ruled the airways during the mid-90s. It's all Neil Young, and it always has been, but it's also Crazy Horse. First track on the B-side starts large with Powderfinger. Neil Young's imagery on this track is maybe the clearest of any of his songs, with his backing band Crazy Horse charging the album with electric guitar, bass, drums, and their backing vocals that match the story perfectly, bringing grand and triumphant jams to accompany the tragic story of a young man's life getting taken in battle while trying to defend his family from an approaching gunship. He's shot by the gunship after firing his first shot from his rifle. And I really like how the death is described here with the line, "I saw black and my face splashed in the sky," giving his perspective of seeing his face as he's looking down at a puddle and his own reflection in the puddle as he's dying. And the guitars meet with a powerful climax with what I interpret as the soul of the young man wishing things had been different, wishing that the idea of whoever orchestrated the attack had never existed, or that he could only be with the girl that he was in love with for a short time, and that he never really even got to know what he wanted from life. The line "fade away so young" also feeds back into the theme in My Hey Hey, with "it's better to burn out than to fade away," as well as him going into the black when he says, "I saw black and my face splash in the sky," which is actually a great way to contextualize the two sides of the album, with the first 5 songs coming out of the blue and the last 4 songs going into the black. A+ for track structure. The distortion on the guitars is cranked to 11 on Welfare Mothers, which was one of the songs actually recorded live on the album. Side note, most of the songs were recorded in a studio and then overdubbed to sound live. I do wonder if the claps on the song are from an audience. They are suspiciously coordinated. This song is really Neil Young trying to tear at the social stigmas around romance and class, with the chorus of the song saying that single mothers are the better choice when it comes to love. Kind of an odd angle for a song, but I choose to believe that it comes from a good place, and he genuinely does want to lift up single mothers and get people to remove their stigmas around love with divorcees. It goes along with the prevalent theme on the album of lifting up the marginalized. And Sedan Delivery is the song that took me the longest to understand, but is the one that I actually have the most to write about. Powderfinger and Sedan Delivery were 2 tracks given to Ronnie Van Zant and Leonard Skinner to record, but not long after the lyrics were given to them, a plane crash tragically ended the lives of Ronnie Van Zant and 2 of the other members from Leonard Skinner, and also seriously injuring the remaining members. The song is meant to be in the punk style of Devo, who Young had been hanging out and clearly influenced by for a while. Sedan Delivery ended up being a major influence on 90s grunge. And looking at the Wikipedia definition of grunge, it matches up pretty well. The song is about a drug dealer who acts like he doesn't care about anything and pretends that his way of life is better than everyone else's. The song is kind of different from other examples of Neil Young taking the perspective of one of his characters, because it's meant to be ironic. The drug dealer mentions the affair of Caesar and Cleopatra, saying that the love that they had must have been an extraordinary experience, but he knows that he can achieve that too without having to be a ruler of a country, and that would be getting high off of his drugs. This verse hits harder knowing the people in Neil's life that he's lost to drugs, using them as an escape for their lives. And this character mirroring that same escape route, denying everyone else's way of life to justify his own drug use, that he knows deep down is killing him. And that's echoed through the final lyric of the song. Sedan Delivery is a job I know I'll keep. It sure was hard to find. Hard to find, hard to find, hard to find. It's hard to find a job. Which reads to me as an admission that his work as a drug dealer is a result of his life spiraling and not panning out the way he wanted, and it really being his only choice of work. The themes of the song aren't super easy to pick up on, and the lyrics are sort of all over the place, which is a big departure from the narratives built on the songs leading up to Sedan Delivery. But you can see that style of scatterbrain lyricism Neil uses making its way onto some of Kurt Cobain's work, and even gonna include my favorite lyricist, David Berman of Silver Juice, as well as many other musicians that you could probably think of. The album ends with Hey Hey My My, which is an electric counterpart to the album's intro to really drive home the duality of the themes of the album, with burning out and fading away, going out of the blue or into the black, that sort of thing. The guitar solos are earthquakes, the drums are getting hit with the force of a guillotine, and Neil Young is just shrieking the lyrics that he was nearly whispering only 32 minutes ago. He wants the world to know the complications of being a famous figure in rock and roll, and really drives it home with this grand and energetic finale. And the album ends with an applause from a real audience, fading into black for the last time. That's it for the track review. My favorite songs on the album are Thrasher, Pocahontas, Powderfinger, and Sedan Delivery. Let me know your favorites. Could be your favorite song on the album, favorite Neil Young song, Neil Young album, Neil Young moment. Just let me know. Whatever you want, really. This is my first of these type of album review videos, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for making it to the end of the video as well.